Joining us at this point is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former diplomat. We also have Admiral Shekhar Sinha, former Indian Navy officer, joining us live. We have Major General J.K.S. Parihar, senior defense expert, with us live. Also with us is Major General Dhruv Katoj, defense expert. Let me begin with you first, Ambassador Sachdev. Very important that the Prime Minister spoke about this issue on Independence Day, that too from the ramparts of the Red Fort, emphasizing how important this issue is for not just the PM, but for India. India strongly voicing our concerns for the plight of minorities and Hindus in Bangladesh, the violence, the persecution that they've been facing. And, this statement is important even as it comes, amidst global silence largely on this issue, sadly, sir.
You're quite right today. In fact, the speech, that component of the speech is important, not only because what was said, but what was not said. India did not, from the mouth of the Prime Minister, from the ramparts of Republic Day, of the Independence Day in Lal Killa, he didn't utter any threats or any consequences or negative impact on bilateral relations, etc. In fact, the tenor was quite positive. He said that we would like to continue participating in Bangladesh development story. And he said that we are interested in peace and stability in our neighborhood. He also left no particular ground untouched when he talked about 140 crore Indians, not taking a sectarian view, not taking a religious view of the issues. He mentioned minorities and did not particularly touch a specific minority only. And all that was put in swabhavikta or naturalness of India's concern. So all that is need to be read very carefully. And I think there was also no mention of Sheikh Hasina having come to India, etc., and what would be the future course of the ties with her be. So all that is also conspicuous for noting. Thank you.
Also, in fact, join Admiral Shekhar Sinha for his perspective as well. Admiral Sinha, now the fact, of course, is that, Independence Day and the speech at the Red Fort offers an opportunity to the Prime Minister to speak about a host of issues that are important for India. And while, of course, he laid out a roadmap for India, not just for the next 5 years, but for the next 2 decades, in fact, all the way up till 2047, the Prime Minister made it a point to speak about what's happening in our neighborhood as well. What stood out for you in his address? And what do you make about this particular emphasis on our neighborhood and in particular Bangladesh and the plight of the Hindus there that the Prime Minister spoke about, Admiral Sinha?
Well, thank you for getting me on your program, and my best wishes to all your viewers on the Independence Day today. You know that the Prime Minister has covered a very wide canvas of things that concerns the country. As far as the neighborhood is concerned, yes, if you see our neighborhood, it is troubled. Not one neighbor is in a state of peace. There is turmoil, there is a political upheaval, there is interference, there is economic coercion in almost every country, which is not a very good news for India. And therefore, for the Prime Minister to show his concern is very natural. And he is concerned, he's not worried, because he also in the same breath talked about the preparedness of the armed forces. He also talked about the induction of the platforms. He also talked about the Atmanirbhar Bharat and how the armed forces are actually selecting the indigenous, platforms, instead of selecting, buying from outside. Sorry. So I think that it's a very, very important speech today, if you don't look at it only from political viewpoint. And I think it is addressed to all the countrymen. The big thing that I take away from the entire thing, he did mention about the internal disturbances that we have in a very passing way. And he talked when he was talking about constitution. And he mentioned that he is here to protect the constitution, and he will not allow anything which actually makes any alteration in the constitution. Now, this has been one chorus, during the time of election. That being a very political issue, I'm not going to mention that. But I think the Prime Minister today, in today's speech from the ramparts of the Red Fort, I think he looked little more concerned than the previous 10 times that he has appeared, or 9 times. Today is the 10th time, I think. So his concern is very natural, because right now the country is passing through a phase where we are on the path of development, where we are on path of making ourselves self-dependent, Viksit Bharat by 2047. At the same time, there are inimical forces which are around the country, and they are sort of causing concern and diverting the attention of the government and possible lot of resources. And that is what the matter of concern is. And therefore, developing economy to have that kind of, economic power to handle all this is some hidden message that he has given. And that is why so much talk on your neighborhood, starting with the situation, the geopolitical situation, and what India looks forward to, Viksit Bharat and Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. He talked about Bangladesh. The ambassador just mentioned about it. He has not mentioned anything about, any negative way. And let me tell you, Bangladesh and India, as far as armed forces are concerned, particularly the Navy, they're very close equation, though the Navy there has also bought 2 Chinese submarines. They are also got ingress into training pattern. But let me tell you, Bangladesh is an independent, sovereign country. It is their desire as to whatever they want to do. But I can tell you that the agreements that we have right now, I don't think that we should have any very much worry unless those agreements are abrogated, which is very unlikely. You see, Maldives, President Muizu, during the time for election, he sang a different song, and today he is asking India to continue helping. And our External Affairs Minister has been brave enough to go and have a direct contact with him, conversation with him, and continue to support Maldives in many ways in which we were supporting. President Muizu has realized that, the neighbors and relatives, they can't be chosen, they are given. And therefore, Bangladesh too, if there are anti-India sentiments in the public, they will soon realize how important it is to have India on your side. So that is all I will say, and I'm sure my other panelists will throw some light. Yeah, Uday.
Yes. Major General Parihar, come in here, because, a stable neighborhood is very important for India's progress as well. Of course, what happens internally is important, but what happens externally too affects our development and our security. Unfortunately, there has not been stability in our neighborhood, in Bangladesh, in the recent past. And also, what has concerned India has been the atrocities on Hindus, which is why, Major General Parihar, it was very important and pertinent that the Prime Minister touched upon this issue today. What did you make of this point?
Yeah, I would say I echo with the Admiral Sinha's views. And I must say the Prime Minister was very specific on the point of our relationship with the neighborhood countries. But he was very cautious, and it has to be in the international diplomacy, particularly when you are dealing with a sovereign country and there is no direct issue linked like a border issue which we have with the China and Pakistan. It is one has to be very cautious. As such, the present scenario in the Bangladesh is totally anti-Indian and anti-Awami. So in this particular scenario, one has to be make sure that interest of the country is safeguarded. For that, the Prime Minister has rightly said in a broad manner that minorities has to be protected. He mentioned a very small reference on the Hindus, not specified too much. As such, it is not to be done in the public forum. The message has been clear and delivered. Rest all is the internal mechanism of diplomacy between the two countries, which will take care of it. Our foremost requirement with the Bangladesh is that the new government, which is 100% sure would not have the participation of Awami League in any circumstances, will be either this interim government will continue in the army will continue under the shadow of the internal government, or BNP and Jamaat Islami, they form the government. In all those situations, the Indian influence on the Bangladesh would be much less, and our concern would remain with the insurgencies in the northeast, which was flourished during the BNP time by sheltering Ulfa and other extremist groups and their nexus with the China and ISI. So for that, India has to work, and Prime Minister has taken a very right path on this particular aspect of how to deal with the Bangladesh. Our diplomacy is very mature, and I am sure that we'll be able to handle the situation with the Bangladesh in a very effective manner. Yes, Prime Minister has mentioned about our preparedness for the Indianization of the armed forces. We are going ahead on this particular task, but the important event remains there that the crucial and highly sophisticated technology we have to develop. Probably it will take at least 2 decades, but we again on the same track. We are going in a very positive manner. So overall, I would say the Prime Minister's speech, in addition to the diplomacy, armed forces and other issues, he was very cautious and balanced, not going with the announcements and anything which may disturb the internal harmony or our relations with the in the international forum.
Absolutely, and which is why, Major General Dhruv Katoch, we have been, of course, discussing the situation in Bangladesh extensively, and also, on NewsX, speaking about the Indian viewpoint on all that is transpired there. But this concern was very important, wasn't it, for the Hindus and the minorities' plight in Bangladesh, because the kind of turmoil there and the kind of atrocities on Hindus has not been seen in many, many years in this neighbor of ours. Major General Katoch.
Thank you, Uday. Greetings to you and to all my co-panelists and to all your viewers on this very auspicious occasion of our Independence Day. You see, Bangladesh has always been very close to India. But what I found particularly, when this has happened, some scenes which took place in Bangladesh, the way they took down the statue of Mujibur Rahman, the way they have desecrated the memorial which was created for the Indian soldiers who fought there, the surrender ceremony, etc. All that has been vandalized. I think there was an attempt out there to turn this legacy, this legacy of the freedom which Bangladesh won in 1971. There's an element to sort of change that history by these forces. I'm quite convinced, regardless of what other people may say, that these are radical forces. Now, the Prime Minister making mention of it, I think, was absolutely essential, but I think it was done in a very neat and a very dignified manner. He didn't lay too much emphasis on many issues. He simply said that we are there for the people of Bangladesh, and we will look, our developmental priorities remain there. In very broad terms, he meant that the cooperation between India and Bangladesh will continue as heretofore. But he also made it very clear that government is duty-bound. While India is duty-bound to continue good relations with Bangladesh, the interim government there is duty-bound to protect the Hindus and the other minorities. I think, in a sense, though he said it in very simple terms, in very simple words, I think he has laid down India's red lines. These are India's red lines. You will not violate it, otherwise there will be consequences. A whole lot of these things weren't said. Obviously, they won't be said. But the very fact that it was mentioned by the Prime Minister from the ramparts of the Red Fort, I think is very important. You see, this is his 11th address from the Red Fort. The first time when he spoke of something as trite as, people should have toilets. And see, over a decade, the transformation which has taken place in India as far as health and hygiene is concerned. These messages of the Prime Minister are not off-the-cuff remarks. They are very well thought out. and there is an implementation mechanism placed behind every single sentence of policy which the Prime Minister states. It isn't that the Prime Minister has simply come to the Red Fort and made a statement. Every statement will be backed by action over the time to come. Which is why when he also spoke of Viksit Bharat and what we are doing to get there in 2047, he has laid down a long-term vision very, very clearly. And it is incidentally, he also laid down that vision many years ago, which means there is a consistency in what the Prime Minister is stating all through in all his addresses from the Red Fort, that while we will continue working for the immediate future, our long-term focus and our goal remains a Viksit Bharat, which is why he put that that quote is going to become very famous, 24/7 for 2047. I think it is such a beautiful quote. It's going to it catches the imagination straight away. And it is very highly motivational, especially for the youth. That all of us have to work together 24/7 to achieve that target goal of becoming a developed country by 2047. So in this address of the Prime Minister, he addressed, the economic concerns. He addressed the need of getting the poorest of India's poor to go along on this developmental paradigm, because as he stated, if the poorest of India's poor do not develop, then we cannot reach that goal. So his focus was very, very focused on the poor. It was very focused on the agricultural sector. It was very focused on getting our industrial base in order so that we become a country which manufactures instead of simply dependent upon imports. And he laid thrust on that as far as the defense sector is concerned. On the judicial side, I think there were very important pronouncements where he said that, I think his words were, we have had a communal civil code since 1947. And he says, now we must come, as it is written down in the Constitution, and what the Chief Justice has also continuously stated in the Supreme Court, we require a uniform civil code. And I see India now moving towards that direction, despite the fact that there will be those diehard elements who will oppose anything that is progressive in this country. So the focus, I think, has been long-term. The focus remains long-term, but he has addressed everything which needs to be addressed. And I think he has very clearly laid down the path which India is going to take over the course of the next 5 years when we get down to the next election in 2029. The path is clear. The road is clear. The Prime Minister is clear. Now it is for the people of India to join hands and be a part of this great journey to be a developed country by 2047. Uday.
Absolutely. But, Admiral Sinha, while Prime Minister, of course, has spoken about this earlier too, in a message to Mohammad Yunus, the caretaker Prime Minister there, also today in his Independence Day address from the ramparts of the Red Fort, what, as I said earlier, has been concerning and, distressing but unsurprising to some has been the global silence on this by world powers. Why are they not concerned about the plights of Hindus or the plights of minorities in Bangladesh? Where are the advocates of, freedom of speech and upholders of human rights now? Admiral Sinha, is this hypocrisy?
Yeah, it is hypocrisy, and it exposes their hypocritic approach to the world. As a long time back, if you recall, our External Affairs Minister very rightly in a press conference said that West's problem is our problem and my problem is my problem. So this is exactly what happens. They have a different scale. Unless it is happening to their own brethren, they will not make a comment on that. The entire West is silent. A very broad statement has been made by the departments who are concerned in the Western country, saying that the peace must be reverted back to immediately. Now that means nothing. Peace, obviously, where there is a turmoil, the peace has to return. But I think there is no doubt about that. Here, one has to help themselves. You have to fight your own battles, no matter how many agreements you have, how much people tell you that they are also democratic. I'm sorry, we have to fight our own battles to that. And I think this is, again, it's our battle. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I say this with a bit of concern, that there is some complicity of the Western powers in what has happened in Bangladesh. I've been saying this. I hope I'm proven wrong, but this is my analysis. Uday.
Okay. Let me also, in fact, quickly draw in Ambassador Sachdev's perspective on this. On going forward now, how further can India help Bangladeshi Hindus and further put pressure or emphasize on the caretaker government there to act and act now?
I think there are various options. From one extreme, interventionist option, another end would be sort of polite soft power. I would here also like you to take on board and take cognizance of the silence of the Islamic world. It could have played a more dangerous game for us, but the Gulf countries, Iran and others are preoccupied, and they have less time for what's happening in Bangladesh. Pakistanis have been having their own turmoil with Afghanistan, which you have covered yourself, and they have their own internal issues. They, at least openly, are not backing up. There's no particular visit being planned to Dhaka, etc. And what ISI is doing is something that they should be expected to be doing. So that is one part. And in the situation, I think we need to leverage our economic muscle. We need to leverage our cultural ties with that country, people-to-people contacts, and also we need to have play the leading role. I think West can be faulted for being silent, but they would like us to take the lead. We should consult them. We should try and push them into having a democratic consensus with regard to Bangladesh. And we should create an international pressure group where we can perhaps push Bangladesh further. But let's also remember that it's been only 10 days since the coup. And what happens in first 10 days is no indication of where would the buck rest eventually. I think the game is still on, and I think when many other panelists, as they have also said, once the dust settles, Bangladeshis would realize that a country which has 2,640 kilometer long border with them, perhaps the only border barring Myanmar's a little border on the east side, is too important to be ignored, and the words being said from the ramparts of Lal Killa by the Prime Minister need to be taken seriously.
Absolutely.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.